There's something nobody ever tells men about falling in love. Not really. Not honestly. They get told to be strong, to lead, to not need too much, to keep it together. And most men spend their entire lives doing exactly that, keeping it together, while something enormous moves through them quietly, below the surface, with nowhere to go and no language to describe it. If you're a man listening to this, you felt that thing you couldn't name, that pulled towards someone that you maybe laughed off, or buried in work, or expressed sideways through doing things for her, instead of just saying the 4 words that were sitting in your chest the whole time. And if you're a woman listening to this, someone who loves a man or is trying to understand one, this is going to answer questions you've been carrying for years. Questions like, why does he go quiet when things get deep? Why does he show up with actions but disappear with words? Why does he seem so close and so far away at exactly the same time? The answer isn't what you think. It's not emotional immaturity. It's not avoidance. It's not that he doesn't feel things as deeply as you do. It's almost the opposite. Men feel love with extraordinary intensity. The male brain in love is not a cold, logical machine with occasional flickers of warmth. It is a system under profound, sometimes overwhelming emotional pressure. Pressure that most men were never given the tools to process, let alone express. What you're about to hear is what actually happens, inside, stage by stage, what he shows you on the outside, and what is simultaneously happening underneath that you never get to see. By the time we reach the end of this, something is going to shift. Men are going to understand themselves in a way they maybe never have, and the people who love them are going to see them, really see them, for possibly the first time. That's not a small thing. Let's begin. Stage 1. The first notice. What he shows, nothing, or close to nothing. Maybe a glance, maybe a slightly longer conversation than necessary. From the outside, he seems completely unbothered, casual, like you barely registered. What he actually feels, his nervous system just fired in a way it doesn't fire for most people. Something about her, not always something he can articulate, landed differently. It might be the way she said something, the way she laughed, the way she held herself, something specific, something particular to her, cut through the noise of everyone else in the room. And the reason he shows nothing is not because he felt nothing, it's because what he felt startled him. Men are not taught to sit comfortably in the experience of being moved by someone. The first response, almost universally, is to collect himself, to not react visibly, to bring himself back under control before anyone, including her, notices that control briefly slipped. This is where the pattern begins, and it runs through almost every stage that follows. Stage 2. The mental return. What he shows, normal life, going about his day, texting back at a normal pace, not doing anything that would signal he's thinking about her. What he actually feels, he's thinking about her constantly. This is one of the most quietly overwhelming experiences in male psychology, and almost no one talks about it. When a man's brain locks on to someone, really locks on, she becomes a background process running at all times. He'll be in a meeting and something she said surfaces. He'll be driving and replay a moment from 3 days ago. He'll hear a song and immediately, involuntarily, associated with her. He's not doing this on purpose. He can't stop it. And the fact that he can't stop it unsettles him because men are deeply conditioned to believe that what they can't control is a weakness. So he doesn't tell her. He doesn't tell anyone. He just carries it. And she wonders why he seems so even-keeled, so unaffected, when she's also thinking about him and at least showing it in small ways. Here's the uncomfortable truth. His restraint is not indifference. His quiet is not absence. The silence where his feelings should be audible is actually full, packed with something he hasn't yet found a safe way to release. But here's where it gets harder. Because stage 3 is where most relationships either quietly begin to build something real or collapse under the weight of what neither person is saying. Stage 3, the testing phase. What he shows, curiosity, questions, time. He starts wanting to be around her, finding reasons for it, but framing it in practical or casual terms. We should grab coffee sometime. I'll walk you to your car. nothing that commits him to a feeling he hasn't confirmed is safe yet. What he actually feels, he's running an assessment that has almost nothing to do with logic, even though it feels logical to him. He's asking, can I trust her with the parts of me I don't show anyone? Not yet consciously, not in those words, but underneath every interaction, that's the question. He's watching how she responds when he's slightly more honest than usual. He's noting whether she mocks things he cares about, or whether she treats them with care. He's measuring quietly and constantly whether she's the kind of person it would be safe to be fully known by. Because that's what love requires of a man. And it terrifies most of them, not because they're weak, but because most men have been burned by showing too much too soon to someone who wasn't ready to hold it. And they learned, somewhere along the way, that the cost of being fully seen by the wrong person is enormous. So he tests, carefully, in ways she probably doesn't recognize as tests at all. Say this with me. What looks like distance is often just protection. Because that reframe changes everything. It changes how a woman responds to a man who's pulling back slightly. It changes how a man understands his own behavior. Distance in the early stages of male love is rarely rejection. It is almost always caution exercised by someone who has learned that opening up carries real risk. But here's where the story gets more complicated, because stage 4 is where the caution starts to crack. And what happens in that crack is not what either person expects. Stage 4, the crack. What he shows, a moment, maybe just one, of unusual honesty. He says something real, something slightly more vulnerable than his normal register. And then, almost immediately, he pulls it back, changes the subject, makes it joke, acts like it didn't happen. What he actually feels, that moment of honesty was not accidental. He chose it. Quietly, internally, with more deliberation than it looked like it did. He decided to let one true thing out, to see what she did with it. And this is the part that contradicts everything you think you know about men and emotional availability. Men don't open up slowly because they don't want to open up. They open up slowly because every step of opening up is a conscious, deliberate, sometimes frightening choice. There is no casual vulnerability for most men. What looks like a small, offhand admission, "I've been stressed lately," or "that actually meant a lot to me," often cost him more internally than it looked like it did. And if she responds badly, if she minimizes it or uses it later or makes him feel foolish for saying it, that door closes, sometimes permanently. Not out of spite, out of self-preservation. He files it under "not safe here" and rebuilds the wall, often without either of them fully understanding what just happened or why. But if she responds well, if she receives it quietly, doesn't make a production of it, doesn't punish him for it, something shifts, something fundamental. He notes it, he remembers it, and he comes back with something slightly more real the next time. This is how male emotional intimacy actually builds, not in one grand gesture of openness, in small, tested moments of honesty that either get rewarded with safety or punished with exposure. Stage 5, the realization. What he shows, possibly nothing, or a sudden, slightly awkward increase in effort. More texts, a gift that seems random, showing up when he didn't need to, actions that don't quite match the emotional vocabulary he doesn't yet have. What he actually feels, he just realized he's in love with her, and it hit him like a wall. Here's the thing about this moment that is so rarely described accurately. For most men, the realization of love doesn't arrive gently. It doesn't build to a comfortable conclusion. It arrives as a kind of shock, a sudden, clear, undeniable recognition that this person has become necessary, that the idea of her absence from his life produces something close to physical discomfort. And the first response to that realization is almost never joy. It's almost always fear. Because love to a man who has never fully let himself be loved feels like exposure, like handing someone a map to everything that could hurt you and hoping they don't use it. The realization of love and the fear of love arrive at exactly the same moment, tangled together so tightly that most men can't separate them. So, what does he do with that? He does things. He acts. He builds, fixes, provides, shows up. He expresses in every language he knows except the one she's waiting for, the direct, simple, terrifying one. Repeat after me. His actions are the sentence his words haven't found yet. Because this is the reframe that saves relationships. When a man who loves you goes quiet but shows up, when he fixes your car but can't say what he's feeling, he is not withholding love. He is expressing it in the only dialect he currently has available. The question is whether you can learn to hear it while he learns to speak the other language. And speaking of languages, stop, because everything I've said so far is only half the picture. The back half, stages 6 through 10, is where everything either deepens into something extraordinary or quietly falls apart. And once you understand why, you can't go back to seeing relationships the same way. Stage 6. The protector instinct activates. What he shows, a subtle but unmistakable shift in how he positions himself in relation to her. He walks slightly closer. He pays attention to whether she's comfortable. He notices when something is wrong before she says anything and moves toward it, not away. What he actually feels, something ancient and profound has switched on. It's not possessiveness, though it can be mistaken for that. It's a deep, biologically rooted drive to make sure she is okay, that she is safe, that nothing gets to her that he could have prevented. This instinct is one of the most misunderstood things about men in love. It gets labeled as controlling or overprotective or territorial. And sometimes, in unhealthy expressions, it can become those things. But at its root, in a man who is falling genuinely in love, the protector instinct is simply love wearing the only armor it was ever given. He can't always say, "I love you," but he can notice that you're cold and give you his jacket. He can walk on the side of the road closest to traffic. He can stay up late to make sure you got home safe. That's the same feeling, just in a different container. Stage 7. He starts imagining a future. What he shows, casual, almost throwaway references to the future. "We should go there sometime. You'd love that restaurant. We'll have to go." Small, low-stakes projections of a shared future that he floats like trial balloons, watching to see if she shoots them down or lets them land. What he actually feels, he has already built an entire future in his mind. Not in a fantasy way, in a planning way. His brain has started running scenarios that include her, where he might live, what his life could look like, whether what he wants and what she wants could eventually fit together. Men are often accused of not thinking about the future in relationships, of being commitment-averse, short-term focused, unwilling to plan ahead. But here's the truth. When a man is genuinely in love, he thinks about the future obsessively. He just doesn't denounce it. He tests it in those small, casual references, in those almost accidental we statements that slip out before he's consciously decided to make them. If you're a woman and the man in your life has started saying we, even casually, even in small contexts, pay attention. That's not a slip. That's his future leaking through. Stage 8. The vulnerability breakthrough. What he shows, one honest, unguarded, unrehearsed moment of real emotional openness. It might not look dramatic. He might tell her something about his past that he's never told anyone. He might admit that he's scared of something. He might cry and not apologize for it. What he actually feels, he just crossed the line he's been standing at his entire life. The line between the man the world sees and the man he actually is. This moment is sacred, and it's fragile. What happens immediately after it will determine the trajectory of this relationship more than almost anything else that comes before or after. If she honors it, if she doesn't flinch, doesn't minimize, doesn't bring it up later as ammunition, he will love her in a way that goes beyond anything either of them has previously experienced, because she will have become the first safe place he's ever had. And a man who finds a safe place doesn't leave it. If she doesn't honor it, if she's uncomfortable with it or treats it lightly or uses it against him later, he will close. And the closing will be thorough and quiet, and she will spend months wondering what happened to the person she briefly glimpsed. This is the hinge point. Everything before this is approach. Everything after it is either depth or distance. Stage 9. Love becomes his identity. What he shows, a different version of himself, subtly but unmistakably. He's more patient, more present, more willing to engage with things that previously felt like too much effort. His friends notice he seems different. He might not be able to explain why. What he actually feels, she has become load-bearing in his internal architecture. The way he sees himself has started to incorporate her. Not in a dependent, unhealthy way, in the way that genuine love always changes the shape of a person. He is becoming someone who loves her, and that identity is threading itself through everything else he is. This is the stage that most people don't recognize because it doesn't come with a declaration. It comes with consistency, with showing up again and again in ways small and large, because leaving is no longer something his brain easily entertains. She's not a chapter anymore. She's become part of the structure of the story. Stage 10. He chooses vulnerability over armor. What he shows, he says it. He says the real thing, not in a performative way, not in a practiced speech, but in a quiet, honest, slightly imperfect moment where he decides that what he feels is more important than the risk of feeling it out loud. What he actually feels? Free. This is the stage that the whole journey has been building toward, not just for him, for both of them. Because when a man who has spent his entire life behind the armor finally puts it down, what's underneath isn't weakness. It's everything. It's the full depth of what he's been carrying, the loyalty, the devotion, the fear he pushed through, the future he's been quietly building, the moments of honesty he tested and stored and slowly expanded. All of it, right there, for her. And that's the thing about male vulnerability that nobody talks about honestly enough. It isn't a character flaw slowly being corrected. It isn't emotional immaturity that he needs to grow out of. It is a profound, hard-won capacity that a man develops through the specific experience of being loved safely enough to try. You don't demand it out of him. You don't criticize it into existence. You create the conditions where it becomes possible. And then you wait, with patience, with your own honesty, with the willingness to be the first one to put your armor down sometimes. And you watch it emerge. Because it will emerge. In a man who is genuinely in love with someone who genuinely makes it safe, it always emerges. You came into this maybe confused about why men are the way they are in love, why they go quiet when they feel the most, why their actions speak loudly while their words stay locked somewhere unreachable. Now you know. Every stage of male love is a negotiation between what he feels and what he believes is safe to show, between the enormity of what moves through him and the limited emotional vocabulary most men were handed, between the man the world trained him to be and the man he actually is underneath that training. Understanding that doesn't excuse silence when honesty is needed. It doesn't make it okay to leave someone guessing forever. But it reframes what the silence usually means. And that reframe, that shift from he doesn't feel to he feels deeply and hasn't found the way through yet, changes everything about how you love him and how he learns to love you back. If this opens something in you, if you felt that quiet recognition somewhere in your chest, share it with someone who needs to hear it, a man who's never had language for what he carries, a woman who's been trying to understand someone she loves. Like it if it reached you. Subscribe because this is only the beginning of what we're going to get into together. The bravest thing a man can do isn't fight, it isn't lead, it isn't build empires or conquer mountains. It's let someone see him fully, without the armor, and mean it.